What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm back for a new video, and this time we have some Schranz with noise not war, and I decided to go for the melodic Schranz. So as usual guys, check the link in the description if you want the project file. Let me know what you think in the comments. Comment, like, subscribe. Thank you for the support, and now let's get into it. So I'm gonna start with the kick, and I've used my framework that I already show you in my tutorial on Schranz Kicks. This is how it sounds. So I have this group, then I recorded it and made another group. I will show you that. So just to present the framework, I'm doing first a kind of low kick, something very compressed with a Schranz groove. I then add back a bit of punch, and then I have my Schranz loop. So for the low kick, I have first this rumble kick. So I'm using a punch kick here, this one, and this is the audio effect track to make the rumble kick. So I have, of course, my dry rack. So for this one, the dry rack is just a slight short reverb, just to give it a room. And then I just tame the high end because it was too harsh on this one, and I'm gonna add it back after. So this is the dry part. It's just the punch. Then I have my rumble. So I make this sample go through a convolution reverb, completely wet. I sidechain, of course. I saturate a lot, and then I just EQ and then compress with the OTT. This is going to form my rumble. And then I have a rumble a bit higher. This is just a bit of hair, something in the mid-range, to give it this drive. It's basically the same principle, just EQ here, only in the mid-range. So all together it's then compressed and saturate a little bit more with the saturator, with the Oxford inflator. I make sure my bass is in mono, and I use the decapitator to add a slight saturation here again. So this is the rumble kick. Now you need to add like the washing machine Schranz effect. So here I'm just taking the punch and making the triplet like this. I use again the convolution reverb, but this time like half wet. This is to ensure it adds a bit more drive and a bit more transient. I like it better like this, but then it's the same principle, side chaining, saturation, and just here to get the Schranz groove, it usually resonates here around 100 Hz. And so together we get the classic Schranz rhythm. All of this together is again saturated a lot. So extra Oxford inflator, saturation, and decapitator. I think it's the same chain that I have here. And then I had back some punch because I distorted a lot to get something a bit grainy, a bit saturation. But because of that, I lose a lot of dynamic. So I get to put back some transient. So that's why I put back the top kick here. So I just isolate the top. And then I have the Schranz loop. So for my Schranz loop, you're gonna see also this in the drum part. Usually you just stack some loop. So either Schranz loop from any pack, or you can find some drum loops, and you're gonna throw brute compression, like lots of compression. It's basically gonna create some noise. You sidechain, of course, to let the kick go through and to have like this offbeat effect. And then you can play with lots of stuff. So either you can play with the pitch here. It works and you can create like dozens of like even crunchy, like almost beat crusher type of effect. You can do with another loop here. Again, brute compression. Here I'm using a gate, like a tail of a reverb. And I just had like an auto filter to make the thing move. So also I have a movement because, for instance, this one is pitched 3 semitone and this one is not pitched up. So you get a movement in 2 bars. Again, on the group, you can add more saturation, like even a camel crusher, if you want something even more heavy, and you can even change it afterwards with a shifter. At this point, it's mainly some noise, so it's not going to change a lot, but you can just sculpt it and change a bit the sound and the tone of this noise. And so all together, I will saturate and compress again, because here I want something heavy. So without the group effect, it sounds like this. And I'm gonna put distortion, soft clipping, 30%. Decapitator, again, with a little bit of drive, OTT for compression, EQ. So here I'm just checking the resonances and I make sure my tonal balance is better. It was way too much low end, so I can also do that. It could work, but usually it's better to work with EQ on the high end of the spectrum, less phasing issues. So that's why I did that. So this is the kick, then I record it and I get this sound. This is my kick. And I'm gonna, again, just do a sus2, this time for the harsh resonances. It's a very, very useful tool, especially for Schranz, because you get so much noise, so much distortion. It's easier to cut the resonances with sus2. So I put it on every channel, every drum channels, basically. This is my kick, just final EQs for the resonances. And just a top kick again to add back that tiny transient that was lacking. And here I'm just playing with that kind of dynamic EQ. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this kick. And you're gonna see afterwards, I make a lot of transitions with this. I'm using the crush effect from Ableton. So it's just a rack here that plays with a beat crusher. And you can get this kind of old school Schranz effect. So again, I'm automating the crush with the Redux, which is a beat crusher here. I'm automating also the auto filter make those transition. I can also use here reverse kick, classic old school type of stuff. That's pretty much it for this kick. And now we're gonna go through the drums. So first my Schranz Loops. So as I told you, I'm using here a bunch of different stuff. So here like a tail that I reversed from a sample and just a classic 909 open hat. And I'm just creating a delay and brute compression so that it's way more heavy. Of course, you gotta control that compression. I'm using this delay, so I have a dry signal, and then here is just a rack with 3 different types of delay. So I use a lot this delay rack, this track, and it's gonna create even more groove because you get different type of delays. Just sidechain, of course, sidechain on all the drums. So I got this first Schranz loop. I got another one, which is composed of 2 different layers. So again, just stacking up drum loops and a kind of perk loop. Same type of effect, brute compression, EQ, plate reverb, and my delay here. Again, different type of groove, thanks to this delay and those different groovy patterns. I'm using also the crush effect for my transition on this group. And you can see that I also use my return channel to make reverbs well for my transitions. So with an endless smile here, which is 100%, and I can create my sweeps like this. I got also a fill drum here, what I call like this, to make this kind of rhythm every 4 bars. So it's just a weird drum loop that I compress a lot. Again, I have also this break loop that I use. The delay rack to do another type of transitions. Then I have a straightforward open hat. So as you can see here, basically this is my main groovy pattern. So I have 2 Schranz loop that I alternate. Sometimes I put the 2, sometimes only 1. And this is going to do the drive. And then you got the drums that kind of go and cut through the mix. These are way less compressed and it's easier to hear them because they are like real drums. It's not noise. So I first have, for instance, this 99 open hat. So I pitch it down to have a better pitch to my liking. I have also cut the tail here. So basically it's compression to make something more snappy. Then just this ambience reverb, a little groove, and another reverb actually. Then just a lot of EQ for mixing, a final compression, because my attack was a bit too aggressive. And this one is going to cut through the mix. And you can see that on the span. Well, it's pretty much balanced here, but you can feel that this open hat is going to cut through all of this noise that is formed by this. You see you have this space. Then you have the clap. So what I do for my clap is as usually put a snare and a clap. Snare for the snappy feeling. So just a 99 snare, distorted, EQ'd, slight reverb, and same for a clap. So it was already pretty fat, and then I just added more saturation, same kind of effect. It was a bit too wide, so I put it in the center, and then compression to make it extra snappy. And final one is the ride, which is very important. Schranz, you always have it. So you have this typical rhythm. You can play here with the volumes. You can play with the pitch to make different ones. And I think this one, you have 2 different volumes to create a kind of groove. And again, you can create a different tone with the shifter. Then it's heavy EQ, because usually it's pretty harsh here around 10K. So you gotta make sure it's balanced, and sidechained, of course. And that's pretty much it for my drums. So as you can see, you got the drums that cut through the mix, you got some transition drums, and you got like the noisy Schranz loop that makes the groove with the kick. Now we're gonna go through the harmonics. So for the harmonics, I have my Reese Bass, a few sweeps, and a pad and the melody. So for the Reese Bass, I'm using the same patch that I did for Moyero tutorial. You can check it. And basically it's just a tune, so wave with lots of movement on the wavetable, aggressive distortion and compression with multiband compression, of course. Even Camera Crusher on top of it to make something that really is fat. So here my scale is A sharp and I'm creating this movement. So here I'm just creating like a 3-part movement and I just play with some notes in the scale. I'm adding a flanger or a phaser here to make extra movement. I'm playing here with the automation to build the tension. I'm also using this Reese Bass with the kick. And here I'm using it with even lower octave, and that's where you get like this crazy gritty thing here. Basically, this is so nasty and so pleasant to the ears. Of course, you gotta make sure here that you have the EQ, and yeah, I'm creating this movement here, and I have another one where I go back to the breakdown pattern. I'm using this Reese also for my transitions. I think I'm also playing here, yeah, with the pitch bend to create that transition. So interesting to see. Also still playing with the automation on the auto filter to make the thing move. Otherwise, all of this is too steady if you just keep playing it without any movement. And here I'm also using the Reese Bass as kind of offbeat pattern in the intro. So with extra sidechain. I'm just using the grit, basically. That's nice to hear. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the Reese Bass. So of course you can check my tutorial to see how to make those Reese Basses. Here just a noise sweep from Ableton just for my transition, nothing special. Here I'm using my vocal sweep. So again, to make some different kind of transitions. Sometimes you have those drums, sometimes you have the reverb on the return channel, and sometimes you can use a vocal sweep or something with more harmonics. So here I just make sure I'm in the key of my track with the pitch up. So you can check, for instance, here with the spectrum where you're at. I'm using it for the different parts of the track here. And I'm also using this for coherence to make a pad. So what I did here is I put this vocal in the sampler, I put the sustain mode, and then I'm creating a pad here with that rack that I use a lot. But basically it's just a very long reverb that's almost 100% wet. I'm just stacking 2 octaves here to have more harmonics, and here I don't keep the high end because it was too much and I already have a lot ongoing on the spectrum. So I just keep here as something for the background, a kind of ambience. Something that tells the audience, okay, this is going to have some harmonics and a bit of melody in the track. And that's nice for the transition and also for the breakdown here. That's why I use it. Okay, so then we have the melody, and for the melody I've been doing some heavy layering, and this is also to show you the 2 types of lead that you usually find in the melodic trance of Noise Not War. So either you have those kind of square lead like the Klangkünstler type of lead. So this could sound like this. Basically, it's a square wave with some detuning and wavetable movement with a filter that's linked to the envelope. This is the patch that I did for my tutorial. Or you have more of a saw leads. Or you can make a combination of those two. And for the saw leads, you can use Serum 1 preset called Run Out of Names, which is basically just 2 saw with lots of unison and detuning and a cutoff that you can move depending on how open you want it to be. So regarding the melody, here I made a kind of harp and so everything is in the scale of A sharp minor. You just jump from one note to the other. You can, of course, humanize the whole thing, and here I just make sure my layers are properly balanced. So you have the high pitch layer here. Usually lots of mud in that frequency area, and also since you are layering, you're gonna make sure you don't have too much here because the two are going to superpose. So I did the same here for this one, same for the solid. High pitch, medium pitch, and low pitch, and everything here is a bit crushed by the amp to give it even more harmonics and a bit of industrial or hard techno feeling. I compress with the OTT, and then I play without automation to build tension. Of course, everything comes to life because of these. Otherwise it's too dry. So I have a reverb, an echo, and a slight delay. I make sure here I don't have too much of diffusion, especially in the bass frequencies. I have my low cuts and high cuts here also to limit the mud. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my melody. Then I also bring it back here and have another kind of auto filter here so that it keeps moving and evolving as the song is playing. That is it for the melody, and the final one is my vocal here. So
until then, with
this is a kind of German vocal that I did with a plugin with AI. The plugin is called Voice Mode, and you can speak and do text to speech or just voice to speech, and you can create this kind of demon or heavy vocal, and then lots of processing for the vocal. First, I gotta make sure it's heavily compressed so that I don't have too much spikes. So heavy compression, radio effect, then vocal sweet sauce from Soundtoy is very effective. Then I'm using a de-esser, bit of echo boy, Sus 2 also, the resonancy, and then of course way too much low frequency, especially because here I already have the Reese Bass, I already have the melody, so I'm gonna make sure I only use the space that I need for the vocal, and then creating that space. And using also the auto filter to create the tension and the movement for the build-up. And then I bring it back here, and again, I make sure I still have an auto filter, because on my spectrum, I will have lots of loops, Schranz loops, drums here. So I keep the vocal in the mids, I have my Reese Bass here and the kick here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my vocal and for this track. So I hope you like it, guys. Tell me what you think in the comments, and I see you in the next one. Ciao, guys.